In this intriguing conversation, we ask these two gentlemen what they think about Rigathi Gachagua, who was actually impeached as the deputy president. This is what Anthony Manyara had to say about Rigathi Gachagua.
The shoe pinches when when there is a thorn in that shoe. Kashagwa, when he was in power, he was one of the most oppressive leaders we ever had. And those times, he was using a lot of force. He was using the police. All these kind of accusations he is making to the government. Remember those times, even eating as Raila Odinga, who was my party leader back then.
In a very elaborate answer, Kasmuel tells us what he thinks about people's perception to him betraying the Gen Z.
I mean, people can think whatever it is that they want to think, but my place is firmly in the Orange Democratic Movement, and we're in the Youth League, and we're there to transform the country through that. And when people talk about betrayal, what do you mean by betrayal? What is it that is so extraordinary that I have done, other than exercise my democratic right? My stance on corruption still remains the same. My stance on tribalism still remains the same. My stance, especially on police brutality, still remains the same.
I also asked Anthony Manyara why he has refused to step down as a student leader for the longest time. And this is what he has to say.
I haven't prolonged intentionally. This is something which has always happened from the people. Is it when people are talking and saying Morara Kibasa is representing people, young people, when did they vote? There was no one who was there to vote, right? I have never claimed to be, actually in the recent times, I've never claimed to be Kuzo president. People keep on calling me that. In fact, I'm more of a party leader. I recently got a nomination certificate for my party, which is the Real Action Alliance.
And of course, he also narrates why many youth leaders across the country, student leaders, have actually been compromised.
In the university, institutional kind of elections, they do it through delegate voting. Remember, you vote a few people, those few people, they converge, they vote for their leader, which is not effective because there's no touch between that leader with the masses. So generally, these kind of people can be able to be compromised. They don't have the kind of legitimacy you would expect. So in my opinion, it's true. It's indeed true the way you have said. Student leaders are being compromised, and they are being compromised very cheaply. And you may want to say that the situation can change. It may not change in the near future now that we're even approaching general elections.
Good evening. My name is Eugene Kwach, and this is the Power Table, where we get to discuss different issues pertaining to politics, where we get to delve deeply into issues that affect you, our viewer. And of course, we bring different stakeholders and thought leaders to get to discuss these issues with us. Tonight, we are joined by two leaders, Anthony Manyara, the president of KUSO, and of course, Kasmuel Mcoure, who is an ODM Youth League leader, and of course, he has many other titles. Of course, they are joining us for a great question, of course, that we have tonight. We are discussing about the youth agenda. Can emerging leaders overcome the old guard's failures? And of course, we juxtaposition the 1980s and of course to our current politics, where the student leaders, activists, took on Moi's iron fist, only to be crushed or co-opted by a corrupt system, elections rigged, dreams stolen. Today, Gen Z and generally the youth faces the same beast. 35% of youth unemployment, looted funds, and a political machine that seduces or silences. History repeats, but will our new voices break the cycle to become its next victims? Of course, we're going to discuss this closely through the lenses of Kasmuel Mcoure and, of course, Anthony Manyara, who have closely worked and are closely working with the youth as their leaders somehow. But of course, before we begin, permit me just to begin with you, Kasmuel. Kasmuel, welcome to the show, first of all. This is the Power Table.
Asante.
Yes.
And you're doing a good job.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
sir.
I've seen you grow in media, and I think it's very impressive.
Thank you so much for accepting our invite for this conversation. And as we begin this conversation, perhaps one of the biggest questions, because as I was coming here, I told people that actually I'm going to interview Kasmuel. And most of them were asking me one question. And the question is, why did you betray the Gen Z? And perhaps before you you answer that because you actually emerged as a very fearless voice for the Gen Z during the 2024 protest. You actually stood firm against the system. Many young people felt had failed them, and they expected you to continue with the same mojo. But along the way, when you joined ODM, actually, things a bit changed because ODM had actually then grown a bit more comfortable with the government. What do you make of what people think about you, Kasmuel?
I mean, people can think whatever it is that they want to think, but my place is firmly in the Orange Democratic Movement, and we're in the Youth League, and we're there to transform the country through that. And when people talk about betrayal, what do you mean by betrayal? What is it that is so extraordinary that I have done, other than exercise my democratic right? My stance on corruption still remains the same. My stance on tribalism still remains the same. My stance, especially on police brutality, still remains the same. And we have to be brutally honest with ourselves that if we want to change the country politically, we must participate in its political processes. Are there things that the Orange Democratic Movement might have done to aggrieve the people? Certainly, as every other political party in this country has. And especially through the lens, the people who say that the donation of 4 of our top leadership into the government was part of what made it look like a betrayal. But if you think about it in a grand scheme of things, the political party did what it had to do to stabilize the country. And personally, joining the Orange Democratic Movement provided an avenue for me to engage with young political leaders, because part of the people I was with on the streets, the most militant voices, came from the Orange Democratic Movement. And I just went to get a home, and it's what I have gotten. And my political mobilization and organization has not stopped. And we're still agitating for the same things. We are still agitating for good governance, for accountability, for meaningful inclusion of the youth in the political and public life. We're still advocating against unemployment, against using youth as a tool of political violence. And therefore, there are a few naysayers. Whether they be many or few, I do not necessarily care. But as long as my purpose is clear and my goal is aligned, I'll achieve it here in the Orange Democratic Movement. And if you think about it, the people who are spreading the leaderless agenda, the tribeless agenda, the partyless agenda, personally, they turned tribal on me. They turned party on me, because when I said we need to form a party, when young people said they needed to form a party, they refused. That was when we were in the thick of things, despite us calling ourselves Democrats. And when people said that we would be tribeless, I started getting a lot of tribal vitriol. And that's when I said, then woe be me, and I joined the party that was most aligned. So for me, I'm very clear in my head that this is the right decision to make.
Okay. Just before I come to you, Manyara, I was actually going through tweets today, and I was seeing quite a number of tweets. The other time you and Morara had actually, you were visiting some slum, Mcoure, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
And I saw some tweets, people saying that where has Morara and Kasmuel now gotten this money without begging, because you know what what happened to Morara. So they think that you guys have actually been compromised. Can you say that you guys have not been compromised?
If it's
Where
about
have you
money,
guys gotten the money?
if it's about money, there are very many rich people in Kenya. I dare them to pull such a crowd. Yeah. I mean, money everyone can get. Yes, get the money, but I dare you to hold a rally where we held a rally. It involves actively sharing your agenda with the youth. And that's what we are doing. And personally, I'm here, I'm undeterred. It's my main mission in the Orange Democratic Movement is to ensure that the youth have a voice, the youth have a say in their politics. For far too long, the youth have we've been fighting. We've been pitted against each other for political expediency. But people have said all sorts of things. It does not prevent us. In Swahili, they say, kelele za chura hazimzuii ng'ombe kunywa maji ya ndovu. It's the same thing. It is the croaking of a frog that will not prevent the cow or the buffalo from drinking water in the streams of. For me, I'm very clear about what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to ensure that we put an end to tribalism. We put an end to the political and violent division that we've seen amongst the youth of legacy politicians, and saying no to the politicians who for far too long have used the youth for political expediency through violence.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll come about, we'll come and we'll talk about the youth agenda in a short while. But of course, Kuso president, you've stayed in Kuso for far too long. People claim. Isn't it time to maybe leave? And of course, they've also claimed actually that you've also been compromised because there are various vital issues that concern the youth, and particularly the comrades. When we talk about the funding model, your voice was never heard. Very critical issues, you never talked about them. You were never heard about. What do you make of the people that think actually that you have been compromised? Just like the times of Moi, either you're seduced or done away with.
Thank you so much, Coach, and I thank you also for hosting us with Kasmuel here, who has been a leader all the way from the times he was in Technical University of Kenya as a speaker. Was it speaker?
Yes.
So I will just comment on the leadership, my leadership. First, I began my leadership from the University of Nairobi, which I was chairperson. I was the first chairperson, the inaugural chairperson of UNSA, University of Nairobi Students Association. Talking about prolonging my term, I haven't prolonged intentionally. This is something which has always happened from the people. Is it when people are talking and saying Manyara Kasmuel is representing people, young people, when did they vote? There was no one who was there to vote, right? So in my opinion, whenever there is a voice of reason that is needed to represent people, I have never claimed to be, actually in the recent times, I've never claimed to be Kuso president. People keep on calling me that. In fact, I'm more of a party leader. I recently got a nomination certificate for my party, which is the Real Action Alliance. This is the kind of transition I wanted when we have been advancing this leadership. We wanted to see how young people can be able to get space in the national government. Kasmuel will tell you it's very difficult for a young person to get space in Kenya, unless you organize yourselves. Sometimes I think there is a quote that says that united minority is much greater, or rather in terms of force, better than a divided majority. So in my opinion, about student politics, everyone hears the name Manyara. They always think, everyone hears the name student politics. They always think of Manyara. Do I tell them to call me Kuso president? People keep calling me chairman,
Manyara,
Kuso
have you
president.
been compromised?
About being compromised, I think there is that kind of perception. People don't have any kind of evidence. You're not supposed to tarnish people's names. Personally, if, for instance,
but
I
you
was
are closely with the government.
I was, in fact, Kasmuel here will be a witness. I was in opposition. I was in Azimio. I was Azimio youth leader.
And today?
That time it was some kind of marriage between Jubilee and ODM. I was their leader back then. We even formed Movement for the Defense of Democracy. I was very outspoken in that front. And when you shift in camps, because of one or two reasons, there are some things which I wanted to achieve. For instance, institutional housing. We wanted to see how, whether we like it or not, William Ruto will finish his term. True? That's for a fact. Unless he dies in power. Now, should we really lose it out for the entire 5 years based on the fact that you want to oppose completely? Right now, there is broad-based government. Do you have to say that because you are in opposition, you're not supposed to, the people you represent are not supposed to access opportunities? That is the kind of decision I made. In my government, there is no time I've ever told students, support the government. People make their own informed decisions.
The students believe, the comrades believe that because you speak for the people, on behalf of the comrades, when there are issues like the funding model, you should be speaking on their behalf.
We did. We were even in court. Actually, we were against the new funding model. We were telling the government to recede their move. They need to go back to the previous older model because it was more sustainable than the current one. These are issues that we advocated for. We were not even the same people who are saying I have the claims, or rather the allegations that I have some kind of roots with governments. I was in the KICC, whereby I was ejected out for a meeting which was meant to be for new funding model. I was not supporting. They ejected me out. I was escorted by more than 11 policemen. Why would they have done that if I had a pact with
Let's
them?
talk about other youth leaders and actually other university students, student leaders, because it's not just about you, Manyara, but there is claim that several other student leaders actually have been compromised. And if you look and compare, actually, because in my, as I began, I talked about 1980s, how the student leaders behaved, and generally what the student leaders are expected to be, what they're supposed to be advocating for. You've advocated for the youth, for opportunities in terms of job, and of course, you've even gotten quite a number of accolades. But your general perception about the youth being compromised, and particularly student leaders, what do you make of it?
Well, I will take you back to 2015. There is this amendment bill, 2015 University Amendment Bill, which is famously known as the Duale Bill. When that bill was introduced, way before, if the country can be able to elect people democratically, directly, whereby one vote counts, you have to choose your leader. In the university, institutional kind of elections, they do it through delegate voting. Remember, you vote a few people, those few people, they converge, they vote for their leader, which is not effective because there's no touch between that leader with the masses. So generally, these kind of people can be able to be compromised. They don't have the kind of legitimacy you would expect. So in my opinion, it's true. It's indeed true the way you have said. Student leaders are being compromised, and they are being compromised very cheaply. And you may want to say that the situation can change. They may not change in the near future now that we're even approaching general elections.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Kasmuel, once again, we're talking about the youth agenda.
Yes.
And the reason why many people believed that actually you had betrayed them is because you had come out as a voice during the Gen Z protest. And actually, you became a leader without a crown, a king without a crown, if I should say. And perhaps now that you've joined ODM, which has grown actually a bit comfortable with the government, the establishment, people think that you will no longer speak to the issues actually that concern the youth as you used to. And perhaps, let me just ask you directly a question that many people will want to know. Do you support the government or the opposition? What is the stance?
You just said that I was a king without a crown.
Yes.
So right now, I'm not sure if I'm a king without a crown, but still a king. That's one. But two, what are some of those youth issues? Because, you know, some of the times it's very easy to ask such questions. So what youth issues was I speaking of before that I'm not speaking about now? I think now you have to consider that, because for us to have a balanced interview, you should be able to say that previously this was what you said about the finance bill, this is what you're now saying. Previously, this is what you said about police brutality, this is what you're now saying. Previously, this is what you said about the government, and this is what you're now saying. Currently, my sole agenda is with the Orange Democratic Movement's Youth League. Those are the questions I can answer. It is not my position to speak for the government. It has spokespersons, it has advisors, it has, heck, it even has four special envoys from our party. If those people cannot defend the government eloquently enough, my support or lack of support does not matter. So I think these are personal opinions. Like, so do you support the government, Kwach, as a person? Yeah.
It is support the government.
Or you support the government?
Because I am a citizen of this country.
Yes. In the same right that you support the government is the same right I support the government. In that both of us are citizens of this country.
Okay.
Yes.
Quite much interesting. Let me just ask you on the same, because we talk about let me just ask you, what are these, we talk about the youth agenda, why we actually here. Because the youth are actually, we've consistently advocated for a change in the guard. We talk about the old guard. They were quite corrupt. They were quite inconsistent in the ways that they led us, and there's so many things awful to talk about. When you talk about the new emerging leaders, what is their vision for a better Kenya, and particularly for the youth? What do you say?
Excuse me. I think we're at the point where we still have not gotten the basics right. But we had to come up with absolutely revolutionary ideas about how our country should be run, because we're still trying to get the basics right. We're still trying to get water and sanitation to the children of humble backgrounds. We're still trying to get people to live above 100 Kenyan shillings, for example, in a day. We're still trying to get food in children's bellies. We're still trying to get vaccines. We're living in an age where vaccines are inaccessible, while we're saying we have a functional government. So that becomes a difficult question, because we still have to audit our debt. We're in a country which is ridden with a lot of financial experts, myself being one. We still have not audited our debt, despite spending a lot on audit firms and having even the big four domiciled not too far from your office. So until we can get such basics right, or education, it becomes hard for us to even champion uh, revolutionary ideas, which should be the way of life around art and artisanal work, around the cottage industries. Before we can bring this, we need to ensure we maybe put an end to political violence. We restore the voting to the man in universities, because that bill was designed to curtail the leadership of one student leader. But then suddenly it has to permeate through the lifetimes of the other students. We need to get to the point where we've gotten the basics right. For now, the youth agenda is one. We cannot have any political division sponsored by politicians, especially based on violence. Two, I cannot willingly lead the children of the working poor to their untimely deaths just because I want to be called a revolutionary in my country. We've seen a lot of commercial activists do it. They get lauded for it on social media. But I'm not here to be popular. I'm trying to change a country. There's nothing rosy or romantic about this. So there will be hatred. It is propaganda. But if I truly were hated, we would have gotten the real feedback in the rally that we organized yesterday that was attended by over 2,000 youth. It is real-time feedback. And so I'm not bothered by naysayers. I'm not bothered by people who do not see what our dream is. People who want to peddle propaganda for their own gain, they can do that. But I'm here to try and show that all young people can work together. All young people do not have to be fighting all the time. Let the battles be of the minds and not of the fists. So if we can get to a point where our ideologies can clash. But right now, if you ask me, a lot of us are centrists. We are welfareists, all of us in the things that we're fighting for. Uh, we have more to unite us than to divide us. And therefore, I cannot lose a wink of sleep to people who are just hell-bent on peddling negativity, people who want to see the bad in everything, where they will want to paint every opportunity as a chance to besmirch somebody. For me, I'm very clear in my mind what I'm doing, especially at the Orange Democratic Movement. And I have to make it very clear that I am unapologetic for being a member of the Orange Democratic Movement. My party is one, and it shall remain the ODM.
I've had quite a number of conversations, sir, with the young people, and they believe that it is time for the youth, and it's actually the youth. When you talk about revolutionary ideas, they think that it's only the youth who can actually change or implement these revolutionary ideas. When you talk about the issues that actually have bedeviled us, like corruption issues, and so many other issues actually that you've mentioned, do you think it's only the youth who can actually implement those the revolutionary ideas that we have? Do we have people who can actually also implement some?
This is a social responsibility. This is a social responsibility that lies squarely on the shoulders of every Kenyan. If there's corruption in the country, in government, is because there's corruption in the country. If there's tribalism in government, is because there's tribalism in the country. So we have to first have good nationhood. We have to change it from the citizens, because this president did not ascend by a coup. He ascended by a majority vote. And now, when we are remorseful for voting, and when we were on the other side, humbly submitting to you that we have a better candidate for president, you told us that this is a better president. And now, the infamous prophecy of a pastor I should not be quoting, who said, "Mnachopigana nacho amkijui na kitawaramba." Now, kinawaramba. And suddenly the blame has to be on everybody else but the people who brought us this mess. And therefore, that's why we're telling all the youth that we must involve ourselves in the political processes. And in doing that, we have to be absolutely stellar and outstanding in our virtue, outstanding in our words, that we do not backtrack or double time in whatever it is that we say. So when you see me at the Orange Democratic Movement Youth League, I submit myself to that constitution. I submit myself to the constitution of the country, and saying that this is a better way of doing things than we have.
Is it only the youth who can change?
I mean, I cannot speak for the older people because I'm not older, but you can see me by joining the Orange Democratic Movement. It is an intergenerational partnership. It is a partnership between the wisdom of the old and the energy of the youth. So we bear their vision and we use their vision and we push it using our energy. So for me, I don't think it is only the youth. I think that right now in Kenya, the youth are the ones who are going to start the revolutionary moment.
Let me ask in simple terms. Is Kasmuel ready to become the president of Kenya?
I am. No, I'm not yet ready to become the president of Kenya because there's a lot of experience that, and out of greed, it's very easy to say that you're ready because you're popular or because you're well known to the country. You know, there are people who pay to be in the kinds of positions that we are in, to have the kind of fame that we have. People invest very heavily. But just because I'm a familiar face does not mean I'm ready to become the president. I think presidency requires a great deal of tact. It requires a great deal of knowledge that I have not amassed yet. It requires a great deal of humility and foresight that I'm still working on. And that's why you see me partnering with my party leader, spending a lot of time asking him, would you have approached these kinds of issues? But also submitting to the Kenyans to listen, because the people are their own liberators. So it's very easy to want to become president. Everybody, just the way we wanted to be doctors, pilots, or the Dale careers when we were babies. It's very easy to want to be a neurosurgeon, or to be a pianist. But it takes a lot of years, a lot of time and dedication to practice, which I am currently investing in. So you will not see me on the presidential race anytime soon. But once I am ready, I think the master will appear. I will present myself for leadership.
Anthony, right now in Kenya, the notion is either you support William Ruto, the government, or you are in opposition. And when they talk about the opposition, you know who they talk about. They talk about the alliance of Gachagua. They talk about the alliance of Eugene Wamalwa, Natembeya, Kalonzo Musyoka, and whether Uhuru Kenyatta is there. Who do you support between the two?
Well, personally, I come from Mount Kenya, specifically Meru. And it looks like politics in Mount Kenya has been widely divided clearly. We have seen there's a faction that is supporting the president, and there's a faction that is on this other side of the likes of Gachagua, whereby leaders go to Amunyoro now and then. In my opinion, I'm on the side of the government, especially now that we have a leader who is coming from Mount Kenya East, who is the deputy president. I'll be very much honest by saying that is the side we are supporting at the moment. The reason as to why I'm saying this is because if you look at historically, Mount Kenya is divided into Mount Kenya East and West. There is no time whereby Mount Kenya East has ever produced deputy president, and it will be nearly an impossibility whereby in Kenya ethnic kind of politics is existent. You cannot rule out that fact. So there are some minority kind of tribes which you can never expect them to produce presidency, no matter how best competent or they are best in so many aspects. So realistically speaking, I'll be very honest saying that we had very good leaders from Mount Kenya East and West. Talking about votes, it's nearly impossible for Mount Kenya East to produce a president. But this is the first time we have seen a deputy president. So that is the side we are supporting currently. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so you believe that even going to 2027, we are going to see the tribal cards play out?
It is obvious, but what I would encourage my fellow youth, sometimes it's oftenly saying that the youth is wasted on the young. Is it the correct? So, in my opinion, if the youth categorize themselves as one tribe, they can make real impact. In 2020, I think towards December, I made a petition at the National Assembly, which was passed to the presidential level, which we were advocating for the aspect of not ruling out the qualifications of candidates. If you want to vie for an MCA seat, you don't require a degree. So we have been advancing in such a way that we have been advancing for the aspect of people contesting for positions without being, without being left out because they don't have a college degree or maybe some kind of qualifications that it was passed. So when I say that having gone through political parties and I see how they do things, and I see the merits, demerits, the flaws, the setbacks, I decided to see how we can be able to transition youth leadership, especially from universities whereby I have some expertise on, whereby they can transition. Now, if you want to contest, we produce our own party. Now, the other day I saw Manyara Kasmuel has been advancing a party. I don't know whether it's registered yet, the Eject Party. Kasmuel here is in ODM. Personally, I'm forming my own party, the Real Action Alliance. It's called RA. So, with time, these are the kind of questions we'll ask ourselves. Generations, there's a lot of hopelessness out here. Young people are fresh from the universities. There's no transition. They don't know how to survive outside campus. They are still relying on their parents. Actually, we are moving to a phase whereby you will be reaching 40 years, still depending on your parents. Unainama at the age of 35. So this kind of desperation requires the aspect of the youth uniting. You are talking about politicians taking advantage of young people, the youth, in terms campaigning and whatnot. That aspect, that norm will never change. If young people themselves, they are leaders. Right now, if you said Kasmuel was at the front and they were saying was their leader, the same case with a few other leaders during the demonstrations last year. Now, if sometimes I tend to think, and this is something I've seen even in campus leadership a long time, people are very envious. Sometimes you have some solid supporters who support your vision. They know very well there's somewhere you are headed. There's something you need to assist the youth of this country achieve. But then there are other people. They will be pessimists. They are negative ad peddlers. They are people who are always wishing. They will brag you. You know, you are bought. You're a spy. You know those things.
Anthony.
But then they are the same people. The same people. They expect you. They put the expectations up. They want you to achieve something. Yet they are the same people who are, propagating kind of theories. Yeah.
Anthony, when you talk about the youth agenda, and of course, this is just not just an agenda for the youth, but an agenda to better the livelihood of the citizens and the people of Kenya generally. And the reason why we call it the youth agenda is because the youth are 75% of the population, which are quite consequential, however way you look at it. When you talk about, in the same statement, you talk about you being proud of a deputy president coming from Mount Kenya East. You also talk about the unity of the youth. These are some of the issues that the old guard actually had. These are some of the things actually the cards they brought about to actually for their own good. And you have even heard what happened to the former deputy president, termed as very tribal. Of course, we're going to talk about that perhaps. Don't you think that is quite it's conflicting when you talk about you being proud of a deputy president from your tribe, and then you talk about unity of the youth?
I'll tell you the truth. Everyone has roots, and we cannot escape from the truth. In Kenya, there are tribes. I think around 42 tribes, sort of. And I will tell you, as a matter of fact, in 2027, if we have candidates vying for president, we'll have options. If there will be only two options, whether you like that candidate or not, you will have to vote for one of the sides, right? You will choose the lesser evil. If at all you feel like the candidates who are being proposed are not of your standards, either way you lose. You will have to choose someone. So, in my opinion, in as much as we are embracing the future, we can never lose on the current. You can never lose on the aspects of the current.
So you think that we should never lose tribalism?
I'm not saying that every country has its own ways of doing things. If you go to Tanzania, you realize that also there is some kind of arrangement.
So is tribalism ours, Manyara?
It's not ours. We have to change. But then again, you have to understand what is happening first. It's like the way in every country, if at all, when we choose a president, we have to go through the party system, right? You need to be in a party. For you have to side with a certain party for you to vote for your preferred candidates. The same way in this country, if there are tribes, they have to have coalitions. You have to merge forces. You have to support some certain I have never seen in this country historically, and actually, unless now we change the future, whereby politics is not influenced by ethnicity. That's for a fact.
Of course,
or rather regional politics.
there's a lot of questions actually to you on why you still actually, because you've hailed having a deputy president from Mount Kenya East. And let me just ask you, Kasmuel, because when you talked about the revolution of 2024, it was termed leaderless, tribeless, and so many. There was so many less. What do you make of what Manyara believes, or rather, what he says about tribalism? Because for long, our politics actually have been one of the things actually that have actually bedeviled our politics is tribalism, which have led to a lot of the issues actually that we've experienced, and the opportunities. And so this begs the question, what do you make of the future of the youth going forward, if at all Manyara will reason this way?
I think it is not necessarily fair to blame it on one person, because this is a view that is held by majority of the country. But it is changing. It is quite quickly changing, and the people approach change differently, and we cannot run away from the fact that our country is made of a very beautiful tribal mosaic. And Kenya is not tribal per se. It is negative ethnicity that is peddled once every 5 years to win an election. It is the system that the legacy politicians have had, and it has worked. The thing I love about my party leader is that he does not do that. He does not organize himself as a tribal leader, and that is why he still has maintained quite a bit of influence in the country. If we as young people can find ways with our emerging leaders, and I would even love to encourage the party leader of Ra and many other upcoming parties, because youth must involve themselves in the political processes. As you go about that, let us now find a way to challenge this tribalism. Let it be that somebody can vie with your party in somewhere in Migori, where I come from. Let it be that all of us can be able to come with this. But you see, the other thing is, we are a generation that has greatly intermarried, that currently in the next 10, 15 years, this tribalism thing that we call will be so complicated and so unsustainable that it will phase itself out because of the intermarriages that we see, or it will be greatly reduced because it's about 65% of the country. If I'm not wrong, it could be higher a figure, live in the rural areas. There are areas which have not yet gotten to that point, but with devolution, you can do business anywhere. That's why you can find traders. There's a Garissa Lodge almost in every county. There's a Kikuyu trader in every county. There's a Luo trader. There's a Maasai, those Maasais who walk around with honey and herbal medicine. They're in every county. And so with devolution, that's part of what I think I laud devolution for. Tribalism cannot be sorted out by one individual. It must be sorted out at communal level. It is a social thing, but I don't think it is a bad thing. It's just that when we use it negatively, its effects are so far-reaching that it takes away from the good. But can you imagine if we could not sing our traditional songs at weddings? If we could not bury the dead in the diverse ways which we have, the Luhyas bury very differently from we, the Luos, and the other tribes. I think it would be catastrophic if all we had was just this homogeneous mix. So it is not bad for people to identify with their tribes. It is not bad to be proud or extremely proud of your tribe. Where the problem comes is when we use the things which we think make us unique to despite and disparage the others, and especially if that seeps into the political narrative. That's why when I hear people organizing themselves, especially politically, if they organize in tribal cocoons, that becomes problematic, because then we cannot advance as a nation, and it makes it hard. But whether or not we like it, the animal that's called tribalism is going to phase away, because it will be unsustainable, just like the other isms we had earlier. The way colonialism ended when people had a revolt, there are some problematic social issues that have always prevailed that will be defeated if the people, just even as a function of time. Yes.
Okay. Kasmuel, let me just go back again and ask this question. Because as you talk about the youth agenda, we've talked about a lot of things actually, but as we come to the end, before I ask you about other questions, because I really need to ask certain questions on the current affairs. But on the youth agenda, beyond the protests front lines and actually political headlines. Permit me to ask, what is your actual agenda? And when you speak of the youth agenda, what does it truly entail? How do you understand it? Not just in rhetoric, but of course now the substance of it. How do you envision actually a radically better Kenya? Maybe if you're handed the mantle as maybe a leader, what will a better Kenya look like for Kasmuel Mcoure?
Industrialize more. Stop auctioning our industries to private individuals who do not have good nation, who do not have the interest of the nation at heart. Yes, while we're still a capital-driven economy, there have shown individuals who've risen, who both care for the nation and for profits, until we can get to a point where we can topple capitalism, because a lot of these problems revolve around the capitalistic model, which I'm not entirely in favor of, but it is currently the most organized, and this is maybe to buttress the point that Manyara made earlier, that the organized minority will more often than not defeat the disorganized majority, forgive me. And right now, because our economy is currently organized around the capitalistic lens, until we can find an alternative method, can we just stop auctioning our companies and all our state-owned resources to private individuals who only focus on profit? Because that then would in turn ensure there's more opportunities for the young people. I would also make it easier to start businesses in the country, because it's very hard for you as an entrepreneur to start out in this country. Just ease the tax measures. Stop giving the youth tokens in terms of, because there are facilities which we give to youth, especially without proper analysis of what the consequences would be. For example, if you think about the Hustler Fund, what would have been a good idea got to a point where it must be used as a tool to avenge the young people to the government, because if embezzlement and corruption is happening up there, then we must also pilfer the resources, because the governments that get in do not necessarily want to make it better for the youth. Then the youth find a place where it is best to hit the government. So if we can sort that employment issue, and we can have full children. And that's why I'm saying it is very hard to be a revolutionary in this country, because until we can get our basic needs right, all this talk about eco-friendly cars, all these talks that we might want to say about mobility, all these things which we might want, we're talking about a country that even the disabled people do not have proper access. Even in such very important buildings, they cannot access them. And you want us to talk about revolutionizing, for example, our transport system. Until we can get the basics right, can we get education right? Can we get healthcare right? Can we get food right? These revolutionary ideas that people are looking for in the media, you want to hear buzzwords, and we still have a debt that we cannot settle. 6-point-something trillion has been lost in thin air. Until we can recover these things, I don't think there's a use for revolution. I just hope that we can get to a point where we can get to zero, and then now we can start talking about positives. But it will be very unfair if we ask people in an economy that is still at negative in the triple digits, how we can turn this into a positive, into a net positive. We have to even get to some. We have to get to zero first, so that we can start climbing.
Well, quite interesting. Sir, what is your view of a better Kenya, a great Kenya? And of course, now that you've even represented the leaders, you've represented a student from the university, ambitious. And actually, the other time we noticed that there are very few students actually who are applying to go to the university, which actually shows how much people no longer believe in actually our education system. I don't know whether you saw that it was on the news. What do you make of a better Kenya through the lenses of Anthony?
First of all, I'll bring the aspect of education. I think education is slowly becoming a fuss in Kenya, because if you look at TVET institutions, when originally Uhuru Kenyatta brought that aspect, or rather when he brought that model, TVETs, they're supposed to equip you with skills, technical skills, so that you can be maybe an artisan, maintenance guy, electricians, those kind of people. But we have seen the government do so little in terms of transitioning, or rather in terms of, uptaking those kind of young people to jobs. Let's talk about even graduations or other institutions of higher learning like universities. How many students really get ready jobs after graduating? Very few. So there are so many challenges that are in Kenya, and most of them we target the government. The government is to blame for that. But then again, it is a collective responsibility for all of us as Kenyans to change the mindset. We need to question ourselves. We need to know that to hold the government into account, they need to move towards industrialization, creating more jobs. Just like the way Kasmuel has said here, there's so much which can be done in terms of equipping our country, manufacturing, enough industries. Let students get paid internships. Let them get ready jobs. And then again, also we need to promote a culture whereby we are telling young people, when you get outside an institution, you're supposed to focus on creating your own job, focus on, creating employment. You're not supposed to have that kind of mentality of white collar nonsense, whereby so many people are expecting to bulge into a certain kind of field. So, in my opinion, I think young people, because we will face so many challenges, you cannot wish the older generation just to die for you to get opportunities.
Let me just also add, interject a bit, because the president, if I get it right, tomorrow is actually launching affordable housing units in Mukuru kwa Njenga.
True.
And for long, actually, when he talks about opportunities, he's mentioned quite a number of times that he's been able to create job opportunities for the young people through such projects. Do you think this is actually a sustainable way of creating jobs for the young people? Because some of them are asking, can we all be Masons? And for how long? Is it even sustainable? Do you think this is one of the sustainable ways, or is it just a political scheme just to keep the youth?
In my opinion, I wouldn't like to sit here and defend the government, but I will say one thing. There is no government which is perfect. What they have done in Mukuru kwa Njenga, I think they are handing over, I think around 1,080 units for sustainable living for residents of Mukuru kwa Njenga. Yeah? And I'm an architect by profession. I understand matters to do with decent housing. If you go to Mukuru kwa Njenga, you realize very many people are living in slums. They're living in very pathetic areas, deplorable situations. So if at all these kind of houses are meant to help those people, it is a step forward. As a Kenyan, what do you think? If you look at those units, you will wish that so many people across the country, that kind of setting can be able to reach as many people as possible. Now, as a youth leader, I will have to say that plan is not nearly perfect, because deducting, there has been a lot of controversies whereby you deduct me some certain percentage, I think around 3% of your salary, and then another person who is far away is benefiting. And that brings us to the aspect of Kenyans being selfless. You're supposed to care about your neighbor. It's not a must that if you are filthy rich, you're supposed to benefit directly from what you are paying for. That a small percentage of your salary should be you're supposed to be okay if it's helping another suffering person or other who is needy and deserving in another area. So in my opinion, I think it's a good step forward. I feel like this government that is one of the key issues, the key legacy projects, which I think at the end of the day will be able to be remembered by many Kenyans. Just like the way we see expressway. So many people may not access it, but if you use expressway, that's when you realize how much it has decongested in the city. Saved Kenyans a lot of time wasting kind of movements. Yeah.
Quite much interesting. Kasmuel, we're now moving to another phase, which I want to ask you critical questions on. Yes, I'd wish to ask questions on the current affairs, but just before you leave, because I understand you have to leave, perhaps you will tell me about what you think about the political setup as it is, because I intimated earlier that Kenyans, it's either you're supporting one side of one side, that is the government, or the opposition led by Gachagua. What do you make of Gachagua and the opposition actually, because he's been actually giving, dropping bombshells every other time, talking about, and you heard about him when he talked about the plans of the government to actually eliminate him. Now, maybe if you could.
Yeah. Personally, I will not be hypocritical in terms of how I think of Gachagua. When Gachagua was in power, when he was the deputy president, those times I was in Azimio. I was in a movement called Movement for the Defense of Democracy. We were wearing red berets, you know. I was even incarcerated there at Central Police Station for having done for having led some kind of press conference at Chester House here in town. I'll tell you as a matter of fact, sometimes the shoe pinches when it's, when I mean, the shoe pinches when you have, when there is a thorn in that shoe. Gachagua, when he was in power, he was one of the most oppressive leaders we ever had. And those times, he was using a lot of force, he was using the police, all these kind of accusations he is making to the government. Remember those times, even Itianga's Raila Odinga, who was my party leader back then. I will tell you as a matter of fact, there's nothing to sympathize about when it comes to Gachagua. Yes, life is sacred. I think he's just exaggerating the whole scenario. I don't think really a person of his stature. Only what we are concerned about is him not to incite the country into chaos in 2027. I don't think there's really need for us to start, advancing that topic of post-election violence way in advance like this, because that is now bringing us back. Remember, I said I'm not supporting tribalism, but we cannot rule out the fact that we have tribes. That's why you have your own culture, I have mine. We come from somewhere, some hinterlands, you know. Everyone comes from these beautiful regions. You have come from the nooks and crannies of this country. Now, that is identity.
Okay.
Now, if you push a political narrative using tribal lines, or rather ethnic kind of discussion in it, then there's a problem. Because if you're a deputy president of this country, you're supposed to serve all Kenyans. You're not supposed serving your own community. So, in my own opinion, I think what Gachagua is doing is totally wrong. He's inciting Kenyans to violence. And you know, fighting is takes a very small push. Remember when last year we had demonstrations of Gen Z, it was justified. So right now, young people, I know very well it is very easy to incite them because of the kind of desperation.
Okay.
We have.
Thank you so much. Maybe your final remarks as I remain with Kasmuel for some.
My final remarks is simple.
Yes.
I think the political class must understand one thing. Trying to stop an idea whose time has come is nearly impossible. It is like curing diarrhea by stitching the anus. You cannot try to do that and achieve only. So, in my opinion, young people should get ready. There has been voter apathy for a long time in our electoral processes. You can make as much noise as you want online, you know, fighting people, calling them this and that. You cannot change the leadership of this country by just making noise. You have to be registered as a voter. You have to be in a certain political formation, especially political parties, because political parties form governments, political parties form oppositions. So in my opinion, young people should rise gallantly. They should support political formations that they feel like they are convinced that have better aspirations and targets to better their lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anthony Manyara, who is the KUSO president. Though you say you're not.
No. Right now, I'm a party leader. People keep calling me president. I don't know for how long. But I don't escape from the position. If it's still vacant, fine. Yeah.
Okay, quite much interesting. Thank you so much for your time. And of course, I'm here now with Kasmuel Mcoure. I'll director, if you allow me, because we'll tackle a few issues, and then before we call it a day. Kasmuel, let's talk about the protest of the Finance Bill 2024, which actually brought you so much into the limelight. And we understand that the Finance Bill 2025 is actually in the offing. And one of the things the Gen Z were accused of is that they were protesting without really understanding what the contents of the finance bill were at the time. And of course, there are conversations that this year's finance bill, it does not go well, according to the Gen Zs, then people again will be on the streets. The streets may speak again. Well, this year, are you willing to lead from the front again if things don't go well in the Finance Bill 2025?
Yes. But I also think it's a lie that the Gen Z did not know what they were protesting, because if it was good, it would have passed. If it was good, we would not have had, if it were good, we would not have had people on the streets. So we translated it in various languages, and we ensured that the people understood why exactly we were on the streets. That is why it was very effective. Therefore, trying to say that we were protesting irrationally is whimsical at best. But again, if we have a bad finance bill for this year, we are going to protest it. We are going to ensure that it falls. Nobody has monopoly of the streets, and if there's any party that has been known to lead successful mass actions, it is the Orange Democratic Movement, from which I come from. So this year, if they joke around, it's going to be worse than it was last year. Because last year I was doing it as a person without a leader. I was doing it as an individual. But right now I'm doing it under the banner of the most populous, the biggest progressive pro-people party in the country, which is the Orange Democratic Movement. Yeah.
I don't want to question how you got to ODM, but before that, perhaps let me just ask you, what criteria do you actually use as Kasmuel to discern that this bill is bad and not fit for the people, to make you lead from the front? And perhaps you could tell us maybe what, or even whether you've read this finance bill.
There's parts which I already think are problematic, the parts that are trying to target the informal sector, the people who are in the Juakali sector, with this, especially on items in the ETR, the receipting. And of course, that is something I will share in depth in the future. We're still going through it as the Orange Democratic Movement Youth League. And there are some signs also around the opacity of its nature, around how the Minister of Finance has been trying his best to popularize the finance bill. When we're being told that it's on the website, when you look for it at the website, it is not available. I'm particularly not hell-bent on ensuring that we go for protests, because there's nothing fun about protests. But if it is a bad bill, it will fall. If it is a bad bill, the people shall, and you cannot. The thing about the Kenyan population is they're very rational. You might accuse them for very many things, but they are rational people. And therefore, if it is the things that make a bad finance bill, if it ensures that the people are being taxed more and they're getting less services, the people do not mind paying taxes. The people don't mind buying things at high prices, but as long as they are of good quality. But you cannot tell us that now you're going to increase taxes and our parents are going to buy fake fertilizers that have been mixed with cow dung and sand. You cannot tell us that you're going to increase our taxation, and we're at the point where we cannot afford the basics. So anything that ensures that our basic needs cost more, anything that makes our lives harder, if we still will be missing drugs from hospitals, if our roads will still be undone, and you increase our taxes, that is definitely reason enough for people to go back to the streets. And sometimes the people don't even need a reason to go to the streets. The people have the sovereign power. So if anything, that because far too long the government has always presented itself as this insurmountable animal, and last year we showed it that it is we the people who give you're exercising power vicariously. You're exercising it. It's a donation that we have made that we can reclaim any day or any time. So if it is a good bill, it will pass.
Now
If it is
that
a
you
bad
have
bill, we'll go back to the streets.
now that you've claimed that you have a leader, you have a party leader.
I've not claimed it. My party leader is Raila Amolo Odinga.
Okay.
Yes.
Will you go to the streets if Raila says don't go?
That is a bad question, because he has always been on the side of human rights. Yes. So if it concerns human rights, I know that he cannot prevent people.
But right now he's supporting the government.
But he was not on the streets last year. We told His Excellency to stay home. And if this year something bad comes along, we will tell Mzee to stay home as well. He's my leader, and I want to see the fruits of the work of his labor. He has fought for this country for far too long. We, his young Turks, are the people who are going to do this work. So we will tell him to stay home, unless he tells us that he wants to join us on the streets. I do not foresee a situation where we have to go back to the streets because the government has become wiser. But if they continue with these jokes, we'll just shut it down. And but right now, what my party leader says, because he has always fought, he has always been on the side of the people. My party leader would not lead me astray. He would not tell the people, he would not try to gag anybody. It is not like him to gag people. So if we start asking such questions about Raila Odinga, we become part of the problem that of the part of people who are trying to bastardize his legacy. There are people who think that by framing bad questions about Raila Odinga, that is being progressive. But his legacy must be protected. Part of my mission at this youth league, part of why I specifically chose this party, there's a plethora of parties I would have chosen from, but I specifically chose this one is because he has been a human rights defender who has a stellar public record. He has had no corruption case. He has fought for this country. Many of these liberties that we enjoy, he has fought for. And therefore, I am here as part of my contribution to the nation and to him, to thank him for his service, is to ensure that his legacy is not bastardized. So asking whether if he says, I do not go for protests this year, or not, I know that is not a thing that he interests himself in doing. He interests himself in good governance, and I know that he will fight for it. But be it as it may, if he sees it fit for whatever reason that we should not protest, I will listen to my party leader.
Kasmuel, I think the position where you are at, many youths will give anything to have it, to be close to Raila Odinga, who has been known for the great things actually that he has done to this country. But and of course, being now in ODM, my question, and I believe so many people would want to know, how did you meet Raila? How did you even join ODM?
I met His Excellency sometime in October last year, during the impeachment process of Rigathi Gachagua, whose impeachment I fully supported and without regrets. And it's part of the reasons why a lot of these people who are peddling my hate online, they do not say it, but that is the day which a rift grew. And I'm unapologetic about it. I think Rigathi Gachagua is not fit to lead the country. Just the same way I was saying I thought William Ruto was not fit to lead the country. If it were up to me, I would have His Excellency, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga leading the country because he has the best interest at heart. But be it as it may, on that Friday after the impeachment, there were processes at the Bomas of Kenya. And after that public participation is when I met him on Monday. And I met him at his office, and he was gracious enough to strike a conversation that we didn't have enough time for. And he invited me up to the house on Tuesday, and it has been a mentorship journey. There is no school that is going to teach you what you need to learn about Kenyan politics as the school of Raila Odinga. He himself is a learning institution. He's an institution of higher learning. And it's an opportunity that I cannot pass up for the sake of a few insults. It's a very small price to bear if I'm thinking of the kind of impact this colossal man has had in my life, and even reflecting upon what it is that the effect that he's had in the country. Meeting him is one thing, joining the Orange Democratic Movement is a different thing. I wanted to meet him as a man, but I also wanted to submit myself to political leadership. It would be pretentious of me to just meet him casually while saying I wanted him to mentor me, because part of the requests that I made to him was a request for mentorship. It would be hypocritical for me to not be willing to submit myself to political leadership. People do it spiritually, and I think it is very important to do it even in other spheres, because one of the best ways of learning is through apprenticeship. I'm very lucky that he leads the Orange Democratic Movement, which is a party whose ideals I agree with wholeheartedly. And therefore, for me, that was not a difficult thing it wasn't a difficult decision. I didn't have to think about it. So these are two different separate decisions that I'm equally proud of, but slightly more biased towards the side of meeting the Prime Minister.
Kasmuel, do you still believe that Ruto is unfit, the president is unfit to hold the office of the presidency?
He's still not my choice candidate.
Is unfit to hold that position as the president?
I mean, I still maintain that I would love to have any other president than him. I think his administration it has led this country to ruin. We've witnessed such huge amounts of police brutality. We've witnessed such huge amounts of corruption and pilferage. We've witnessed such blatant disregard for the law, such blatant expressions of tribalism, such blatant expressions even of election, of willing to participate in election discrepancies, which is the thing that we're trying to fight. And my stance on Rutoism has not changed because I've not seen a reform on that side. And there are deep-seated issues that make me believe that the government, we should form a government that is pro-people. And that is why I'm in a pro-people party, because I know when the right time comes, we shall form that government. So I still maintain my stance that Ruto must go.
You believe Ruto must go?
Yes.
But the party leader of ODM supports the government. Let's just...
if you say supports the government, that is a cheap question because it's lazy.
Okay.
He does not support the government. Just you support the government, as you said earlier in the interview, that by the virtue that you're a citizen. Mm-hmm. He is the most influential politician in this country. Mm-hmm. At that point, he would have chosen to take power for himself, but he didn't. So he does not support the government. He supports the country. To him, the country is bigger than any particular seat, and so him stabilizing this country should not be misconstrued for him supporting the government, because they have ideological differences. If he supported this government, when Raila Amolo Odinga supports a person, he does it wholeheartedly. He did Kibaki Tosha. He helped Moi. He rescued Uhuru during his presidency. He would have said Ruto Tosha in the polls.
Should Raila Odinga say Ruto Tosha 2027?
He shouldn't.
Should he say?
He shouldn't.
Should he?
But I'm saying he shouldn't.
What if he does?
He won't.
What if he does? Say Ruto
it is
Tosha.
Highly impossible.
Will you work with
It is
President
highly
Ruto?
improbable that Raila Amolo Odinga is going to say Ruto Tosha. But if he says so, I know it will be because the 10-point memorandum that we signed has been achieved or fulfilled.
Will you support then Ruto?
If he puts an end to corruption, to police brutality, and we sort out education and the health sector, I'll campaign for him in my own village. I'll campaign for him in Gachagwa's village, where purportedly he's most hated. If he can sort out the basics, I will support him. But as long as we still have this nonsense of police brutality and students being whipped, you're seeing police entering institutions, Kitale Polytechnic, and brutalizing a young woman who's unarmed, while we still see babies dying in matatus because women cannot deliver, while we are still seeing tribalism and some of his people saying that even if they do not get the full vote, what are just the ballots, I think that is not a man worth wasting my support on.
Kasmuel, you have been working with Manyara Kasmuel of late, amongst many other youths, and of course Manyara has said unequivocally that he wants to become the president of Kenya. Probably he will be on the ballot 2027.
I wish him everything. I wish him the best.
Will you support Manyara Kasmuel in 2027? Even if ODM, which you are part of, does not support him and supports another candidate.
But if my party fields a presidential candidate, the question you're asking is rather obvious, that I will support the candidate that my party has fielded. While I wish my brother and party leader of Inject all the best in his presidential ambition, I currently am a part of a political party. And now that this is where we're at, it does not hurt to see a young person go for their dreams. The thing which we are doing, and especially in working together, is ensuring that a young person can have a shot at the presidency.
So what holds you together, you and Manyara?
We have shared ideals of a unified Kenya, a Kenya without political violence, a Kenya where the young are not divided by political propaganda that is being peddled, cheap propaganda and falsehoods, a Kenya where we don't have to lead the children of the working poor to their untimely deaths. And that is why what we're doing is ensuring that all of us have a fair shot at any dream. How can it be that you're allowed to dream to become a doctor, but a young person cannot be allowed to dream of a presidency? What we're doing is enabling the dreams of all of us. It cannot be that you can only dream up to a certain level. How comes you can dream to own a media house, but he cannot dream to become a president? So I think if we cheapen the conversation towards the direction of trying to cheapen the bid of a young aspiring, and I think he's a fairly good leader. He's well organized, he's quite meticulous in whatever it is that he sets out to do. And that's why I say I wish him the best, because he's gone out of his way to form a decent political vehicle. And so we are working around the agenda of ensuring that young people have a shot, that we can have conversations without violence. You can work with people you disagree with. You do not have to shed blood or to lose property for you to register your discontentment and for you to register disagreement.
Kasmuel, what do you make of the agenda of the opposition? We have Kalonzo Musyoka, we have Martha Karua, we have Eugene Wamalwa, we have George Natembeya, we have Rigathi Gachagua, now Fred Matiang'i. We've also had Okiya Mtata, we've also had David Maraga. These are people who actually are presidential hopefuls who wish to lead this country someday. What do you make of this other sector of the opposition?
We only have one opposition in this country. It is we the people, the young people of this country. The opposition is found in the Orange Democratic Movement Youth League. It is found in all these parties that are headed by young people. It is found in the spaces where young people are. So if you ask me questions about those people, I do not recognize them. Still believe that we are the true opposition in this country. So I don't spend time. If you listen to them, there's just a bunch of haggards, people who are political rejects and degenerates. Some of them, they show up for corrupt individuals who have been charged with corruption. Those are the people they go to bail out. But when young people are arrested by policemen, are profiled, they do not show up. So I cannot talk about people who've been
Because you can't wish them away.
But they can't wish us away either. So I'm telling you, we are the opposition. Yes. They thought they could wish us away. But now it is us. We are the ones who are in the center of the conversation. So I do not know anything about them. If they want to play politics at that level, I am focused. I've told you, personally, my business is around the Orange Democratic Movement. I only recognize the political presence of my party leader, who has consistently given directions about how this country should go.
Don't you think we could have a better president among the guys I've mentioned?
No. If I did, I would have joined them. Where I am is where the best presidential candidate will come from. Either that or they will come from the youth. There is no other place where a presidential candidate can come from who's fit to lead the country.
Because we had permit me to ask you this question. We saw the release of a BBC documentary the other time, and you are at the front line of the Gen Z Mandamano, the protest. And so many people expected you to also feature in that documentary. And of course, thereafter, you released, actually, there's a letter you wrote to the president. There's been so much, and actually people have talked much about the same. What do you make of that documentary? And people are asking, why didn't you even feature?
I mean, like I've always said, a revolution is not a popularity contest. And I'm not here to feature on documentaries. First of all, it was traumatic. For me, it was a very traumatic watch. And it made me relive memories that I would hate to relive. And I think the people who are featured have done quite a commendable job for the country. If you think about how the story was framed, the people who were there were good for the story. But the Kenyan story has to be told. You also cannot interview the whole country. So for me, I do not care whether or not I appear in any documentary or I appear in any news. My work is just to brighten the corner where I'm at, is to ensure that here at the Orange Democratic Movement's Youth League, we get it right. If we can have every young person doing that for the parties they are in, we're going to have a clean political slate, and hopefully that kind of documentary does not need to be made about Kenya ever. That's all I make of the documentary. For me, I thought it was a timely reminder of the events that happened last year. Well reported for the kind of story they were looking for.
Okay.
the angles they had looked for, I mean, fairly well represented.
Okay.
And
So it doesn't matter that you were not featured.
no, but what does it mean to be featured in a documentary? For me, like, I'm asking, where's the story? What's the role? We were adequately represented by youth. And I commend all the youth who appeared in that documentary. And I'm happy that the Kenyan story is being written. And I hope to see more of such. And it should be but a beginning, so that this day is etched in our memories, so that we do not remember to forget, and see how little it takes to set a country ablaze. And I'm not saying this, I'm saying this to the greed of the politician. There are little greed, there are little acts of tone deafness, the largesse, the decadence is what led this country to plummeted this country to what it descended into, but also to remind us of our heroism, to remind us of how we can achieve great things when we work together.
Okay. Times and again you have mentioned that there are people who have been paid, particularly activists. And actually people have also mentioned that you as an activist was also paid. You mind sharing details on these activists who actually been paid?
First of all, who has claimed that I was paid as an activist? It's a non-existent claim. It cannot be proven. But I can prove that there are activists who squandered money during the protest. There are people who used their companies to fundraise, and they didn't particularly use the monies. They didn't channel them to revolutionary cause. But I'm not here to besmirch the name of anybody. But I keep on saying that we should start, as we call for an audit of the political class, we should start that audit ourselves. I've said it time without number that I am willing to submit myself to an audit. But anytime I bring about this issue of auditing the 2024 financial records of everybody who calls themselves a frontliner, certainly it is befuddled with a lot of propaganda. I just say that because we are known, our faces are known. Sample us, take the most popular faces that emerged or that you saw at the forefront of this revolution and audit us. Audit our financial records. The truth will make itself abundantly clear. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kasmuel, for this great conversation that we have had today. Perhaps a final shot as we come to the parting shot as we come to the end of this show, Mr. Kasmuel Mcoure.
I think it's very important that we rise up into positions of leadership. That as young people, we do not descend into the political degeneracy that we have always been subjected to by legacy politicians, the people who've always sown the seeds of division. It is very important for us to stay away from the tribal, negative ethnically organized politics. We have to shun the temptations for getting instant results for this republic that we're fighting for. And political problems will be solved politically. Join existing political parties. If you think that there are some that do not represent your ideals, form your own, but we must participate in the political processes. But if you're looking for a home that gives you a space for revolutionary thought, revolutionary ideas, and participation for the young people, join the Orange Democratic Movement. We are in an electoral election process, and as you can, the young people are taking over all the seats, and we are going to influence the politics of this country going forward. So that is what I would say. Make the bold decision and join the Orange Democratic Movement. I must say this because a lot of people would shy from speaking about their parties, but I'm very convicted in my heart and in my mind that this is the right party. This is the party that is going to liberate the country. So you do well to join us.
Thank you so much, Kasmuel Mcoure. And of course, Kasmuel Mcoure was an activist in the 2024. You are still an activist, still. And of course, he's a youth leader at the Orange Democratic movement. Well, it has been indeed a very candid conversation as we got to understand certain critical issues that are affecting us as the people of Kenya through the lenses of two gentlemen. That is Anthony Manyara, the KUSO president, and now Ora leader, if I'm not wrong, and of course, then we have Kasmuel Mcoure joining us for this conversation. Kasmuel has been termed the tomboy of our time through his eloquence and his understanding, savvy understanding, of course, of the issues uh, that are facing us as a people. Well, this is the power table, where we get to delve deeply into issues that involve us. And of course, we get to chew them into policies that you, our viewer, can get to swallow. Well, my name is Eugene Kwach. Till next time, it's been the power table.